So this is an investment in Ireland by one of Canada's best known companies. So we often see FDI announcements, but airline announcements aren't put in the same bracket, and they should be, to be honest. There's a lot of money involved. It's a 4 per week service between June and October next year. 154 flights or 77 each way. 169 seat aircraft with business, premium and economy. That's about 26,000 seats into the Irish market. And we expect, and we hope, that about 20,000 people will make that journey. That's 10,000 two-way journeys, just to be clear on that one. Some small nuggets of information. It's 5,136 kilometres between Shannon and Toronto. The aircraft will probably burn about 15 tonnes of fuel, and it'll take about 6 hours to fly. And importantly, it'll give access to 100 plus connections beyond Toronto. So, and I'll come to that in a while, but that was key to the business case. And it also flies on a 737 MAX jet, which is the technology that both Peter and Tom were referring to, and has a very low seat cost. So we're making some assumptions about how much this cost and how much this investment was. They are not Air Canada's costs. This is a legal disclaimer. They're not their costs. They include all direct and indirect costs. It includes an allocation of the aircraft's time. So this aircraft is listed on Boeing's website as $110 million, but clearly Peter's let the cat out of the bag. It's about 40 or 50 million that they pay. He's just bought 50 of them, believe it or not, with Malaysian Airlines, so I think he knows what he's talking about more than I do, so that's fine. We exclude opportunity cost and profit margin from what I'm about to show you in terms of cost, but it's a really important part of what we have to compete against. And again, it's an industry estimate, and they're not their costs. So first thing to think about is it's all about competition when you're trying to attract an airline to come to Ireland. I'm going to use a couple of examples here. So the airline could have 3 choices. They could have, do one daily to Shannon and then fly on maybe to Chicago, quick hop and back. They'll use the aircraft about 18 to 20 hours a day, really vital for maximising profits. Or they could fly to Las Vegas twice a day. If you look at the distances there in the box, roughly about the same amount of time, or of distances used, about 11,500 kilometres for the Chicago and the Shannon option, about 12.5 for Las Vegas, or they could fly to Orlando 3 times a day, and that's flying about 10,000 kilometres. So really the first thing we have to do is convince them that we're one of the best of those options, or any other options that they're looking at. The other thing they could do is just take that aircraft, retire an old aircraft, put in a really fuel efficient aircraft, raise $20 million from selling the old one, and say, look, we don't want to expand, there's too much risk in it. So this is what we're competing against as a country in trying to attract new routes. If the forecast that they run says that Las Vegas will make a 15% margin, well, you know what? We've got to do better in their forecasts. They're not here benevolently. So this is our estimate. We think that the investment they'll make in this service is $5 million. That's broken down into aircraft costs and fixed crew costs of about 1.7 million. Variable costs, fuel, crew, maintenance, airport and ATC charges, about 2.6 million. I'll come back to fuel in a minute, but airport charges, that's all Toronto, because we're not charging them for the first couple of years. That's what we do, we don't charge them. Toronto's the most expensive airport in the world to land at, believe it or not. ATC charges, you can't get there without them, so you have to do that. And indirect costs, so ticketing, sales, promotion, about 600,000 euros. And this is where we come in and help along with our colleagues in Tourism Ireland. We wouldn't help to the tune of that sum, of course, but we come in and help at that level, helping them promote their brand and helping them to promote their service. So back to fuel. So in that 5 million, fuel costs $1 million, or €1 million, beg your pardon. But if you take a look at where that peak is, fuel back in February 2013 was twice the price it is today. So you can add $1 million onto the bill straight away if that happens. Equally, Peter referred to the price of fuel going down, but that's well into the future, I think. So that's a real piece of volatility they have to think about. So the other really important piece in this is that it's about fares and load factors. So fares, obviously how much they pay, very like the hotel business, and obviously load factors, what's your occupancy. But there's an unusual mix to it that you need to think about. So if you look at the first box there, 65% load factor, 291 euros of average fare, they're only breaking even. If you adjust the fare down by 15%, adjust the load factor up by 15%, you're getting the same results. So you can see that there's a big challenge for them here, and it can't be that, well, we'll do it on 50 flights and the other 27 flights, you know, we're going to have poor fares or they're going to be half full. You've got to do it on every flight. And passengers at any price aren't enough. And a key piece of the regional challenge is that this is going to be, at its start, a leisure-based market. And typically leisure-based markets don't sit at the front of the aircraft and they don't pay very high fares. Peter alluded to the Norwegian fares at €300. I flew with my family to New York out of Shannon. We don't fly out of Cork, by the way. Out of Shannon, and we paid €1,000 return to fly to New York. That's €200 each. So the fares are out there, and there's some great value out of Shannon. The important factor in this is that the premium and business and premium economy, which I've highlighted on the right hand side, are 40% of the seats. But normally they have to deliver 50, 60, 70% of revenues. And that's really difficult in the leisure market. So starting up, there's a real challenge. And we need to support airlines at the start of the services to make sure they establish their brands and build them, so that they can get to those higher fares and get to fill more seats. I'm still on green, I'm doing good. I might tell that restaurant story after all. So how do we go about it? So there was a couple of key steps. I suppose there was 3 years plus of work, of disappointment, of heartache, and then of joy back in September when they announced it. Our business case went on the shortlist throughout that period. Now, getting on the shortlist even is difficult, because if you think about the aircraft and back to that map at the start, it can go pretty much anywhere. The competition was an issue, so they decided to fly to a different destination last year. We got down to the last 2, and they decided to go elsewhere. Very disappointing. Another key challenge was that Canada's always it's really well served out of Dublin, so why would they come to Shannon? So, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And, you know, as mentioned, the aircraft can go anywhere, so it's not just about being a break-even business case, it's about actually showing them something that is one of the best. We had dozens of face-to-face meetings. I know Montreal too well now at this stage because of it, but that's okay. And we had a very successful trade mission, so you know, being owned by the government allows the airports access to ministers, and we brought the Canadian ambassador to Ireland with us, who he's well known in Canada, and that opened doors and that allowed us to achieve our goal. But importantly, we built a really long-term relationship. We gave them a strong view of the market through kind of third-party route development consultants. So it wasn't just us saying, hey, we're good. We got some third-party verification of that. Some key questions we had to answer. You know, does it fit with their geographic strategy? Yeah, they wanted to expand in Europe. An optimal size aircraft. So in 2017, they actually were flying a 767, and frankly, at 230 seats, there's too many. It's 10,000 extra seats for the 20-week period they were talking about. It was just too much for the market, in their view. The MAX jet now at 169 seats is much better. We had to show them there was demand, so to Tom's point earlier, it's about the market. The flights don't create the market has to be there first. You know, what will they pay? We did a lot of historic fare analysis, including other routes that fly out of Shannon. Why are they flying? Tourism, business, and visiting friends and relatives. A lot of tourism in this. We'd like more business mix, but I think that can come in time if we can increase the frequency. Why Shannon instead of Dublin? Well, it was cost, it was congestion, it was a point of difference. And Dublin is getting busier, and, you know, to Tom's point, you know, that is a challenge for the country. Is Airport and Tourism Ireland marketing supports available? Yeah, we've pledged a lot of money to help to support this route. And obviously we offer heavy landing and discount charges over the 5-year scheme. One of the other things we did was, with our track record on the transatlantic, proved to them that this could work. So we've over 8,000 seats a week in the summer to the States, 45 frequencies. The other thing they liked was that they were able to see through Boeing that the aircraft worked on the route, that it was economical, and that the numbers stacked up. And the Air Canada network was vital. So in the forecast that we've done, we think that potentially up to 60% of the traffic will be provided by this. So what that means is, if I'm going to Calgary, I'll fly Shannon, Toronto, Calgary. And that revenue, you're putting network revenue onto the Toronto-Calgary leg, and that's there already. Equally, a visitor coming from Edmonton will go Edmonton, Toronto, and on to Shannon. So it provides a lot of comfort to the airline. Benefits to the local economy. Well, it obviously provides more direct access to key Canadian markets, and that includes small cargo loads and business travel, which are key for FDI and exporters, and I'll get to that point in a minute. 70% of the each-way traffic we think will be inbound, so that's 7,000 each-way passengers. They'll be tourists. We think, from the surveys we've done, that they'll spend 70% of their time on the West Coast because they've come into the West Coast, and that's compared to 50% if they come into Dublin. It'll generate 11 million of spending into the economy, and that's just one of the many routes where we're delivering regional economic benefits. What else? I mean, these are stats from Tourism Ireland. Where are they going to be? Well, these are 2016 stats. This is what they've done. So you can see that a lot of touring in there and a lot of multi-base, and we think that mix will suit the west coast of Ireland. Where did they stay? So these again are 2016. 54% of Canadian visitors spent bed nights in the Shannon catchment on the west coast. But we think that will be a lot higher with access into Shannon, as I alluded to. And where have they visited? 43% of them, and these are all when they're coming into Dublin. 43% of them spent time in Galway, 21% in Clare Limerick, and 50% in Kerry and Cork. So this is the party political broadcast. I'm very disappointed that the minister is gone, but we can convey the message. But new airline routes to and from Ireland are key investment decisions, and I think we lose sight of that, particularly for the regions. The economic benefit to the regions is greater with direct air access than it is air access into Dublin, and that's been proven in the Danish market. I'll come to that in a second. Attracting regional access routes on a leisure-only basis is difficult, so that's back to trying to fill the front of the aircraft, trying to get them to pay decent fares. Currently, only Tourism Ireland invest in new routes, and they do a fabulous job. They really do. But I would argue that, particularly for the regions, there's 40% of foreign direct investment is in the Shannon catchment area. Our catchment is about 60 to 90 minute drive time. 40% of foreign direct investment. They are reliant on access to key markets. So I would argue that Enterprise Ireland and the IDA should play their part in regional access, because they're getting the economic benefit as well. Ireland's National Planning Framework ambition, more economic growth must come to the regions. So new routes to regional airports will clearly support this ambition. In Denmark, they conducted a formal economic study that said that if you bring regional access to regional airports, it benefits the economy more than it would bringing it to Copenhagen. It's the very same here. We're not trying to take over Dublin, far from it, but we're trying to get an equal fair share of new growth in the markets so that we can drive our economic activity, of which tourism is a huge part. New routes to non-Dublin airports bring more tourism, and they are also economic links, as I mentioned. It also has the added benefit to the state of reducing the investment burden on Dublin, and I don't mean just Dublin Airport, but expanding the M50, etc. You know, the state has infrastructure and assets in Cork, in Shannon, and equally in Knock and Kerry in terms of access. You know, we can better utilise those assets. We're built for 4 million passengers. We've 1.8 million. So we can do more, and that's better value for the taxpayers and for the government. Final message. The great benefit about going after someone is you can change your slides at the last minute. So I liked what Paul Carty said. He's gone. He's going to Orlando in the morning. He was telling me so he couldn't stay, but I'll pass this on to him. But tourism is access. He's absolutely right. But I would argue that regional access is more than just tourism. It's regional economic activity. And that includes tourism, FDI, and export market access. But my most important message is please go out of this room and tell people about this service. If we do not make this a success, it's gone. The aircraft will go elsewhere. There's no doubt about it. They're the most portable asset in the world. It will bring lots of economic benefit, and we'd be delighted if you gave it your support. Thank you very much.